This was a gifted child that ended up going down this path, and within 7 years has turned their life around from being at H&P, Her Majesty's Prison, to now it's Her Majesty's pleasure to be receiving her at the investiture at Buckingham. Okay, college dropout. I'm no longer got my place at university. I have a criminal record. I'm living in the inner city of Birmingham. My parents, or mainly my father's, kind of disowned me, told my brothers and sisters when you see me to pretend like they don't know me. Back then, I had a lot of money and nothing to show for it. And that was because I didn't have any purpose. I remember waking up, come out of prison, no money, and I would get up every day, go to this youth project, so happy. When you've got nothing to lose and you are what people have kind of written you off already, you can do kind of pretty much what you like and experiment and not worry about what people think, because at that point, people already thought negative things. Working with some of what society would call the most fiery and most prolific gang members. A little team of young people around me, we're the best people for the job. And actually we beat out somebody who had a very long-standing music industry business in the city. Never really been a big celebrator because I'm the person that's always celebrating other people.
How much of your experience from last time when you ran True Life magazine has factored or filtered into you then launching Black Business magazine and being editor-in-chief? Why did you and True decide to create the Black Business magazine?
So I'd say why we decided to create it was
Welcome to another episode of Everyday Leadership. And today I have the pleasure of a multi-award winning personal brand strategist, keynote speaker, business coach, corporate trainer. She is a co-founder and the editor-in-chief of the Black Business magazine, and there are other bits and pieces I'm sure I've missed out when I talk about my guest today, and that is Justice Williams MBE. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's like countdown now, 5 days, and then it's the Easter holidays, and so I'm looking forward to 2 weeks of a bit of rest and then getting my house back in order, because I don't work typically in the school holidays. And so it's nice not to have any meetings and just a bit of chill time and spending time with the kids.
Are you very intentional around keeping that space when it's kids' holidays, you don't work, or do things just creep into that?
I would say before 2023, very, very intentional. I would say because before last year, 2022, my daughter started reception. But before that, she was in nursery, and she would go to nursery throughout the holidays and obviously have time off at Christmas and a few days here and there when it was bank holiday. And I could still work from home. My son was, 11. He was fine. He likes to be self-occupied. But then a shift happened last year when we launched the magazine. And because it's quarterly, when we looked at the editorial schedule and the plan, for a magazine that was published in October, I would then launch the last week of September, which means that the content would have had to be done by the beginning of September to go to the designers and the printers, which meant Justice here had to do all the interviews during August. And so another thing that I do is I do some pro bono work every summer. For the last 3 years, I've ran a out-of-school activities program for disadvantaged young people who are entitled to free school meals. And so we typically work between 100 and 120 kids. So I was running that and then rushing home for 3:30 to jump online and get on Zoom, feed my kids, and then get on Zoom and do interviews and then transcribe and edit them, because we didn't have our editorial assistant then neither. So yeah, I would say last summer was the worst summer ever. And then True made it even worse, my business partner, because he was on the beach in Jamaica and in Duns River Falls and posting the pictures. And him dancing on the beach and eating jerk chicken, and I'm literally lying in my bed at like 11 o'clock, midnight, literally typing, transcribing. And it was a bumper edition, which meant that it was 3 times the size of the previous edition. And it was just a lot of work. But outside of that taught me now I'm very intentional, and to set boundaries as well. It's really, really important, especially as a woman and a mom. I've got to have that balance in terms of work and also having time with the kids and also time for myself.
I think about you talking about boundaries, talking about the importance of being a mom. And then I list out some of those accolades around strategist, speaker, the magazine, business coach, all those different elements. What's actually important to you when people talk about justice?
Happiness. Happiness is important to me, and happiness is doing the things that I love and that I'm passionate about. I think for a long time I struggled with trying to say like I'm going to put myself into one bracket or just be known for one thing, which, you know, ideally I do encourage my clients when I'm teaching them personal branding, especially when they're getting started. What's the one thing that you're going to be known for? What are you the go-to expert for? But I've always been multi-passionate. I've been multi-passionate around the creative industries. So, you know, I used to be a music manager. I used to do live music events with MTV Base. And there's a whole load of stuff that I used to do that people wouldn't be none the wiser of. Work in travel, I have my own travel business as well. Help my dad out in our international property business in St. Kitts. But for me, my passion is about empowering women in terms of financial education and enterprise education so that they can have a freedom-filled business. Because I know what it's like firsthand to be a mum. I've also been a lone parent. I've also been on the borderline of pretty much being homeless. I've also been on benefits. I've also, you know, struggled and had postpartum depression, which a lot of people don't know. And there's a lot of stigma around depression and motherhood, especially in the Black community. And so for me, my thing was about doing the things that make you happy. And so you'll either see me somewhere or you see me nowhere. And when I say that, it's because I'm a person now. I've come to a state 20 years on, I'm being an entrepreneur. I'm going to do the things that make me happy. I'm going to go the places that make me happy. I'm going to be around the people that make me happy. And if that means that I turn down opportunities, I'm not seen at certain awards or on a red carpet or an event, I'm actually absolutely okay with that. Bit of a complex picture.
Well, it's a powerful one though, because when you think about the different elements of what shapes who we are, that's what you just basically describing. It's recognizing that all my experiences have helped me to grow and evolve and get to the point in my life where like I'm just choosing me, basically. Yeah. You might not see all the different things and the scars that I've gone through, and you might understand some of the choices I might make, but I do. And that's what's the most important to me. And I think that's such a powerful way to live, which a lot of people don't do.
Yeah, I would agree. And family, friends, they often say, oh my gosh, you just got so much potential. You could be doing this. You could be a millionaire, multi-millionaire by now. You could be on these stages. You know, you have the potential to do all this stuff. And I'm like, that's great. But that's not, I don't think that's what my calling and purpose has been. I mean, when I was young, the goal was that I was a gifted child. So therefore I would go on and do something in a professional career. Every weekend I used to spend in a grammar school. When I was in primary school, and I used to do English, maths and science, and I used to love it. I was like the geek in the family. I could naturally pass my exams without even revising for them. But I also was very much a daddy's girl. I wanted to please my dad, and he was like, you're going to be a lawyer and that's what your path's going to be. So you need to go and see your careers advisor, find out what your next steps are, because this was even before the internet. I think the internet came when I got to like year 9. And so it was like, okay, you need to go to college, you need to do your A-levels, you need to go to university, study law, then you got to do your LPC, and then et cetera, et cetera. And so that was like my career planned out for me. But during those periods of time, I had kind of family issues going on. I ended up leaving home when my parents got divorced when I was 10. I left home when I was 15, 16. I left my dad's home because I was living with my dad, who's very, very strict. I literally ran away from home at 4:30 in the morning, ran from his house to my mum's house. And he didn't speak to me for a couple of years after that. Very, very strict and religious at the time. And I decided to go to college. I had all this newfound freedom from a very, very strict upbringing where you couldn't go anywhere. You only could wear long skirts. You couldn't wear trousers. You had to cover your head. You weren't allowed to go to parties. You weren't allowed to wear any designer brands. And then I went into university. I went to college, but then I got my first car. I was living by myself, and then slippery slope ended up getting into the wrong side of the law. And, you know, it was a bit ironic that I was going to study law and now I've got a criminal record. And so although I was passionate at that time, I was thinking I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be making six figures, I'm going to be what society calls successful because I'm going to have this big house and I'm going to have this husband and the kids and the big car, and I'm going to go to the Caribbean on holidays. And that was the goal from when I was a child. But then when I had what I called a fall from grace, it was like everything turned on its head. And it was like, actually, is that what was really going to make you happy? I mean, it's off the table now because you have a criminal record.
Oh,
You're not going to be a solicitor anytime soon. This was back in like 2001. And so from then onwards, I started volunteering at a community project working with young people involved in gangs in Birmingham, and I just felt a calling and a passion to work with young people, and I've just been working with young people from ever since, and even till this day, although it's not a core part of what I do, but it's in a voluntary capacity. And that's when I realised that actually you have a purpose, you have a calling, to impact people's lives, whether it's through entrepreneurship, youth empowerment. And so that kind of began my true journey of finding myself and finding what I was really good at. It took a good 20 years to get to where I am today, but it made me realise that actually through all of that, when I was working at the youth project, it leads back to the point of where we talked about happiness. I remember waking up, I'd come out of prison, I had no money, I had no carpet, I had no wallpaper, and I would get up every day, go to these youth projects so happy and so feeling full of purpose and passionate. And around me, I had nothing to show. Do you know what I mean? I remember when I was away, my car even got taken away by the bailiff, so I was walking. I used to get job seekers allowance, and literally that was feeling like I was one of the happiest seasons of my life, in all honesty. And that's what leads me today to say, I do the things that make me happy and be around the people that make me happy. And money no longer is, the be all and everything, because back then I had a lot of money and nothing to show for it. And that was because I didn't have any purpose. So yeah, that's just taking you a little trip down memory lane for a bit of context.
When I hear you say I had a lot of money, but there was no passion and therefore I wasn't happy, but then I came out of prison with no carpet, no wallpaper, but I'm going to say like I'm skipping and dancing and going to go and work with these youth people. It seems crazy. Like, and when we live in the world right now in particular where it is all around, a lot of times it's around the accolades, it's around the money, it's about the pursuit, the hustle culture that we're kind of still steeped into. What was it that helped you be able to, I'm going to say, reframe your mindset and have a different attitude? Because I think there's something that's important that people can really, really learn from as well.
I would say when you're at rock bottom, the only way is up. So I felt that that's where it was. I've got, college dropout. I'm no longer got my place at university. I have a criminal record. I'm living in the inner city of Birmingham. My parents, or mainly my father's, kind of disowned me, told my brothers and sisters when you see me to pretend like they don't know me, which they didn't do. And so there was quite a bit of resentment there. And it was kind of a bit like, I'm going to show you that I can actually do something positive with my life. And also because I know that where I ended up was nothing to do with my parents. It was my poor choices, because they did give me a really, really good start in life. However, I was blessed back then that we didn't have social media. There was no such thing as Facebook, Instagram. We didn't know how the Joneses were living because we had no kind of frame of reference, where what you would see was television, radio, and newspapers. And there weren't many people like me that was showing up in them places unless they were a victim of a crime or a perpetrator of a crime. And also I was in my early 20s, I was 21, I had no kids. And I think there's something about when you're young, you have a greater appetite for risk. You have a more of an appetite of, I'll try it, and if it don't work, so be it, I'll try it again. And I think that as we get older, we're a lot more cautious. We take sometimes longer to make decisions because we're thinking, okay, right, I've got school fees to pay, I've got a mortgage, I've got a reputation, I've got all these followers, I've got these profile, and we take longer. But when you've got nothing to lose and you are what people have kind of written you off already. They're not, you can do kind of pretty much what you like and experiment and not worry about what people think, because at that point, people already thought negative things of me because, oh my gosh, she's got a criminal record. Oh, she's been to prison. And so it was like, I haven't got anything to lose, but so much to gain.
And, start to move forward, you're now working with young people. How did that then lead you to stepping into the music industry?
I would say that actually when I was inside HMP Brackhill, you had to have a job. And so I was only there for 15 days. It felt like 15 years, but it was literally 15 days. And so they were like, okay, looking at your background, you've got really good education. What do you want to do? And I had an option to work in the library. And obviously I grew up loving books. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is a dream come true because it means I get out of my cell, get to go in the library. So I used to go in the library and I used to get all the newspapers come in and I used to get the Voice newspaper. And so I thought, okay, when I come out, what am I going to do? Because I can't go to university. I don't want to just get a job in a call centre. I've been there, I've done that. What can I possibly do? And so I thought, oh, let me look in the Voice, because then they used to have these little job adverts. And there was one for this talent management agency. I can't remember the name of the agency, but they used to scout for semi-professional and professional footballers, for artists, and they used to work with all these like major record labels or whatever else. And my brother has got a background in the music industry. He has a record label and stuff. And so I always used to help out and be involved. My dad was always involved in music and property. And so music was always something that was a passion of mine. And so I thought, oh, I could do this job. It was commission only. I was the person that didn't like to be confined. And so I thought, okay, I can be a bit more free. And so when I came out, a friend of mine offered me a job in Lozells, which is an inner city of Birmingham, where the Lozells riots took place, right on the front line. And she was managing a hair salon. And so I used to go to this hair salon, but I had a friend who was locked up with me and we lived together. And then she started attending this youth program, and they used to come to the hair salon, pick her up in this white van and take it. It was a minibus. And I used to say to her, like, where are you going in this white van? Because like, it's a youth program. Now, during this time, I'd done a telephone interview and I got this commission-based job. And I thought, okay, this is great because there's young people there. I might be able to scout some talent because I knew that they had a football team. So I thought, let me just pop along to this youth program and, see if I could scout some talent. And I came and I sat in on one of their sessions and I actually kind of forgot what I was there for. And so that led my journey into working with young people. But music has always been like a creative passion of mine. I used to play the piano, and every single one of us had to play an instrument growing up. My brother played the violin, my sister played the clarinet, my other sister played the flute, and my poor little sister, she got the recorder and I got the piano. I know. So my mum used to pay for us to all have music lessons at school, but we were a very creative, artistic family. And so I used to work with some young guys that were very, very talented music artists, R&B singers, DT and Candy. And they asked me to manage them because they could see I had quite a lot of business skills. And I ended up managing them for a short period of time. What did we end up doing? We ended up entering into a competition, and they ended up winning the opportunity to be the opening act for Amy Whitehouse, the late Amy Winehouse, in Birmingham. And they went on to do loads of shows and tour with, the big American artists and so forth. Dee now, he's very successful in doing his acting career and a lot of musicals in the West End and in America. I think Candy's still doing producing and stuff, but I've always been passionate about music and always been in the creative industries, and I've always been a person that, again, want to do things that make me happy. And so that's kind of what led me into music. And then they approached me for an opportunity to do a live show that was filmed and recorded called I Love Live. Came to Birmingham. It was a London-based live show for unsigned artists with a live band, and I won the tender for the Birmingham leg, and it was pitched to go on MTV base with Sir Trevor Nelson. And so I did that for a year. I used to just take any opportunities that came away. But
That's what I'm hearing at this, because even though you just said like, yeah, I want to attend them, I'm like, you didn't have experience doing this.
No.
So you literally just put yourself forward for it, and obviously you won and you did it really, really well. But there's something around the audacity just to be like, okay, what's the worst that could happen? Goes back to just your earlier point. It's like, well, I'm just gonna try. If I fail, I fail. If I don't, I don't. But there's something around that which I think is also a massive skill set and an attribute to you of just being willing to put yourself out there to try new things, even though you didn't necessarily have the experience for it.
Yeah, and I think at that period, leading up to that period, I would say that 2001 to 2005, I think I started doing the music 2006. It was a period where I was, first of all, starting as a volunteer at this charity. The job centre had signed me off because I was doing 30 hours a week of volunteering. So I just get my job seekers allowance of £45 or whatever it was a week. And I used to walk down the road from Handsworth into Lozells into Aston and attend this project where I was working with some of what society would call the most hard to reach and most prolific gang members in Birmingham. And so from that, the organisation went for a transitional period where we were based under a Christian charity and we were getting a lot of attention from the news, and also so we were working with a very kind of, what we'd say, high risk group, and they weren't really prepared for that. And so they kind of said, well, you know, you can hang around for another 3 months, but you guys are now going to have to go your own. And that's when I used my skill set and my resources to kind of say, right, we can do this. We can set up our own organisation. We can become our own non-profit. It's very possible. But I was lucky enough to go on every single training that came my way. 1 day training, 2 day training course, weekend residentials. It was a pick me. I had this lifelong learning attitude. I wanted to learn, and through that learning, it gave me so much confidence. And that allowed me to be able to grow and to be, you know, the person I am today, which meant that I had business development skills, organisation skills, project management skills, and a lot of skills which are transferable to any industry. But again, it was being a young person and saying, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. Why not try? And I had a little team of young people around me, and we were like, yeah, we can do this. We're the best people for the job. And actually, we beat out somebody who had a very long-standing music industry business, you know, in the city. And then they picked me and said, yeah, you can do this. And I said, okay.
That's curious. How did it feel when you actually won that tender and you beat out someone who's got so much more experience? I think that's another element. People are like, yeah, it felt good. I'm like, no, how did it actually feel?
Do you know what? I was very confident, and I think that's something that helped with me winning it. I was very confident, and when I got it, it was like, okay, that's great. On to the next one. But that's my personality in general. I'm not a person that celebrates really big, like my wins, like, okay, that's great. We got it, we move. And I think that's probably stemming from childhood, because like even like birthday celebrations, I have had one birthday party between the ages of 0 and 28. And I was banned from a birthday party. And so I never had this thing of celebrating. That's another story for another day. I cut my hair and my dad said I'm not allowed to attend my party. Got a few lashes, got sent to bed, and I could hear them all dancing downstairs at my 10th birthday party. And I think I got a piece of cake, but I got told I had to go to bed because I cut my hair. So I just cut my fringe. My dad wasn't very happy, so yeah. So I've never really been a big celebrator. I think it's because I'm the person that's always celebrating other people, and so that whole, oh my gosh, you've won this amazing thing, I'm just like, okay, let's do the work now. And it was just, let's get to work, really.
When was the last time you celebrated something big that you have accomplished personally, professionally, whatever that looks like? I'm curious.
Oh, good question. My 40th birthday, 3 years ago. I planned to have like a dinner. I wanted to set up a foundation. I was going to have this big dinner, this gala, but COVID saw the end of it because I turned 40 in 2020. But my sisters rallied together and they put on this amazing small kind of celebration at my house. They organised a massage, afternoon tea, because I love a good afternoon tea. So like afternoon tea at home, and then I ended up going to a spa, and it was like just like invested in myself. And just looking back, and then they spoke to so many people in my life and put together this kind of this is your life video, which played, and like just hearing other people and their experience and relationship with me was really kind of like, wow, I've done a lot. And then that year, 2020, every 10 years, I look back over the last 10 years and I list all my achievements out year by year. And I thought, wow, who is this person? She's amazing. She's done some good stuff in that decade, you know, from 2010, have a child, going on to become Levi Strauss, global ambassador to, you know, support women across the globe in social change and entrepreneurship, to also becoming, you know, one to watch a Red magazine, being invited back to 10 Downing Street, and then all the things that I've done year after year since then. I was, I think my 40th was the year when I kind of look back, and probably I'll do that again when I turn 50, who knows.
For you, it's every 10 years.
Must be. I'm just not a big, I don't know what it is. Don't know, maybe I need therapy. Or just a big celebrate.
Sometimes it is hard. There are people, especially those who shine the spotlight on everyone else.
Yeah.
There's something around being able to do it for yourself that feels a bit icky. It just feels weird. Like, I don't want to be center of attention. I don't want to look at myself that way. Or maybe it just feels a little bit proud and boastful. But I've also learned over the years that it's important just to be able to recognize, like you having that 10-year think back, like, oh wow, I've achieved a lot. Even in this conversation, when I listen to you, especially what you shared about the start, I'm like, well, that organization that you had in 2005, looking after the youth, that was what, almost 3,000 young people that you influenced in a positive way from those days. That's huge. Not a lot of people can say that. And then other accolades ever since. So there's been a lot of impact that you've had on the lives of so many people.
Yeah, and it's funny because when obviously I went to prison, you like HMP, Her Majesty's prison, and then getting an MBE and then getting a letter and it's saying it's Her Majesty's pleasure, HMP again. You know, the irony of that. And that was like a 7-year period. What is very spooky, but I'm very spiritual, and like I see 7 years as biblical, 7 years the number of completion. The 5th of November, 7 years prior to me standing in Buckingham Palace, was the day that I got arrested. The last time I got arrested, and then following that, the January I got sentenced. And literally, the day you got arrested, 5th of November, 7 years on, is the day that I'm at Buckingham Palace standing in front of the Queen, to the day, 5th of November, you know? So it was definitely
Full circle
been a
moment.
journey. And I always says that, you know, when they say you do the time, you do the crime, you do the time. And so for me, I say I'm always going to be of service too. And then when I came out and it was young people, it's made me realise that actually this is what my calling is like. You know, I can't say that I've came up in the inner city or from certain backgrounds, but I know that I have power and a purpose to help young people for the skills that I do. And so I always have a passion for young people. And now as a mother, it's just shifted in the sense of my focus is really around tackling child poverty, especially in Birmingham, as we have one of the highest rates of child poverty, you know, in the UK. And so the work that I do now in the school holidays, in terms of the holiday program, it's about helping those families where children may not have a hot meal to eat that day and be able to say, listen, we can look after 100, 150, I think at the most we had 160 kids. And so it's a real family affair because my kids come along and volunteer. My mom is the caterer, she does all the food. And so, yeah, and my sister and my brother, they also help out on the program as well.
And there's something around, for you and impact are two words I think that go hand in hand. So everything that you do, you always want it to be impactful and you want to make a difference. And in every life stage that you have, I even having your kids, I'm sure this is what's really opening your eyes up to this instance of like, I want to make a difference to young kids to ensure that they can have food, like some of the basics we have, especially in the Western world. Yet it's not afforded to everyone. So being able to shine a light and do that work every summer, that intentionality about you is key. It's interesting when I think about that, and I think about you talking about your MBE. How important was that for you, if at all, for you getting that, or for you was it just another, I'm just doing the work, I'm just being impactful, I'm just being purposeful?
I think what was interesting was that I'd worked for, I would say, how many years was it prior? So that was 2009. So it was 7 years that I was doing the work. And most of that time I was paid very little, if anything. And it was like, by the grace of God, I look back and think, how the heck did I survive? Like, how did I feed myself? How did I live for those 7 years when I didn't actually have a salary? Not even a part-time income. Not one of those years that I even had a part-time income to say I would get £500 a month. But yet I still made it through and made the impact that I had and managed to run all these projects with all these young people. And so I had burnout twice during that period of time. And I remember coming up to 2009 at the beginning, and it was like I'd launched my first magazine, and the recession had hit 2008. And it was like, this magazine ain't going to survive. I had an office, I had staff, I had to shut it all down. And I was at home and I was still working with young people, and I was like, God, you need to give me a sign. Like, I know what I'm doing is impactful and it's changing people's lives, but I'm struggling here. I'm literally like surviving on boiled egg and toast and tea. That was like, beans is a luxury. That's the type of thing that I was eating. And if you look back at my pictures from that period of time, you'll see that I'm very skinny. And so literally all my money was thrown into the business. And I just said, God, I just need a sign. I'm not after money anymore. That's not the goal. But I needed to give a sign that what I'm doing is the right thing that I'm supposed to be doing. And I just want someone to say, well done, Justice, keep going. Because at that time I didn't have a mentor. I had one mentor, but outside of that, I didn't see him very often. But I needed someone to say, well done, you're on the right path. What you're doing is making an impact, and we see you and we recognize you. And so I remember literally a week later, a letter comes through the post from the Prime Minister. It said St. James's Palace on the front. And I was like, St. James's Palace? What's coming on here? And then I read it, and it said, your name's been put forward to the Queen Elizabeth for an MBE for services to young people in Birmingham. And it was from the Prime Minister at the time, that was Gordon Brown. And I was confused, and I read it again, and I thought, okay, they want me to nominate somebody to get an MBE, like I knew one person who had one, never knew the process, which actually was my mentor, never knew the process of how to get one, etc. And I was like, who am I supposed to be putting forward? I thought, hold on, let me read it again, because my eyes deceiving me. And then I read it again, and it says, no, I'm getting an MBE. And I was like, huh? I was very, very baffled. And the first thing that I did is just sit down for a minute and then reopen it, like the words was going to change in the paper. And I was like, literally like lost for words. And then I called my mum, and I was like, Mum, I've been nominated to get an MBE from the Queen. Like, I don't get it, for my work with young people. And she was like, oh my goodness, we're going to Buckingham Palace. I'm going to meet the Queen. And she hung up the phone. I was like, hello? Not even a congratulations or anything. It was literally like, oh my gosh, I'm going to Buckingham Palace and I'm going to meet the Queen. But I feel like in that moment, it was so instrumental and pivotal for my mum, because this was a gifted child that ended up going down this path. And within 7 years has turned her life around from being at HMP, Her Majesty's Prison, to now it's Her Majesty's pleasure to be receiving her at the investiture at Buckingham Palace. And it was a thing of, in that time, 2009, people who looked like me, women, and a black woman, we weren't getting Queen's honours. This is 2009, we're in 2024, 15 years ago, I was the only black person at the palace during that investiture, because they spaced them out over the year. And so it was really interesting because, again, my dad, he's a very much bonfire upon Babylon type of guy. And it was a case of, do you really want to be a part of this? And my mum, she was just ecstatic. And, I spoke to my mentor, I spoke to a few people. I was 28 at the time. And then I was reminded of this quote that I often like to quote when I do talks to young people. And it says, the past is a place of reference and not a place of residency. You can't live there. So I had to say, well, I can't change the past and the atrocities of what happened in the British Empire. But will this give me a platform to make an impact for the young people going forward? Yes, it will, because back then, again, this was the early stages of social media. There was no Instagram. Nobody was on LinkedIn like they are today. There was Facebook, but Facebook, again, was just Facebook for family and friends. And you still had to get recognised in like the press and be on television and things like that. And so I knew that if this was going to actually bring awareness to the work that I was doing, in some regards, I was happy to be the sacrificial lamb for those in the community that was like, oh, you should never accepted it. But also I thought, actually, my generation, they saw things differently. They were like, no, do it. This is going to open doors, not necessarily just for you, but for all of us. And so that was the reason. And I had to say, I said, I'm going to be of service to young people. And then now I'm getting an MBE for services to young people. It's like, there's no coincidence in that. And so I accepted graciously. And then that was in the May, it was announced, in the birthday honours. And then November the 5th, a week before my birthday, I was at Buckingham Palace in front of the Queen. And the following week, I was back in London, and that's when I was honoured with Cosmopolitan Magazine's Most Inspirational Woman of the Year at the Woman of the Year Awards. The one thing I will say is that had it been this year, 2024, I can't say if I would say yes. I think in light of everything that's happened in the last 4 to 5 years, I think we're in a different time. I'm in a different, era of my life as well. But then I was in my late 20s. Nobody was giving me any recognition or support locally. Nobody was giving me any resources outside of my mentors that were giving me advice and guidance. And I thought, this is going to help, build my brand so that I can be of service. It was never about necessarily, oh my gosh, look at me. Because I was an introvert, just like I am today. But it was an opportunity to actually make a real impact and a real difference.
You saying you're an introvert, I'm sure will surprise a lot of people. Because
People do say that when they see me.
Yeah, because you're out there. You're out there. You do talks. You give speeches. You do personal branding. You're on every platform. You got the magazine. There's so much stuff that you do that when people think about what introvert is, quote unquote, and I put in quotes, and what you are, two different things.
Yeah, because I'm not an extrovert. I'm not a person who likes to be in loads of crowds of big people. I'll be honest, they give me social anxiety. I don't mind doing talks. I prefer to do talks about the subject matter and not about me. I do get often asked, like, when I got my MBE, I literally went on like a tour for 2 years of talks on talks on talks. A lot of them was in schools, which I didn't mind. It was about my journey and some of the things that I did. That made me feel very uncomfortable because we weren't growing up to, talk about our feelings and the things that we went through and things like that. And so I don't like the intention on me. I didn't like the fact that, I remember one time I went to Nando's, we had dinner for my dad's birthday. We were all in Nando's, and a young lady that I mentored, she came up with somebody else that she was mentoring now, kind of paying it forward. And the girl was crying, was like, oh my gosh, Justice, you're so inspiring to me. Can I get a picture? And I was like, what do you want a picture of me? And so for that, it's like, I'm definitely not an extrovert. I prefer actually to be like on panels or hosting events, but I don't mind because I know my subject matter so well: personal branding, business strategy, marketing, sales, all that good stuff. That's not a problem for me to get up and talk about it. I like to impart knowledge and education. I think that there was a time when I did a lot of inspirational talks, and I get invited to go to schools when they're doing like their end of year celebrations and deliver inspirational keynotes and kind of those words of affirmation to those young people, those kind of powerful kind of presidential keynotes, which is great when it's not necessarily directly about me.
Are you?
But that's why I don't go to a lot of networking events, because it takes me a while for my emotional and my social battery to recover, like absorb people's energy. And so I really prefer, I think ever since I've had my children, I just really prefer to be more in intimate settings. And that's why I launched my monthly brunch club for women, because also as well, women, especially once you've had kids, you get this knocking confidence. And the typical networking events are very much networking events where breakfast time, a lot of men, and we like to be like a relaxed environment, no pressure. And so I just wanted to create a safe space that I wish existed when I was growing and building my business. And, you know, for 3 years straight, that was sold out. I didn't even really need to even advertise the events. And 3 years straight, every month, they were just sold out, one after the other. That's the environment that I like to be in. I did a personal branding masterclass the other day with True workshop. Again, 40 people, 45 people. Again, that's the environment I like to be in. I like the teaching, the training aspect of what to do. But the whole big keynote or talking about my journey and story, not so much. I did a TEDx, and that was, I think, the most scariest thing I ever did. That was in 2013. But it was the best speaking experience, just the process that you go through. It was the best speaking experience that I ever did. But I'm not a fan of doing loads of talks.
How do you restore your social battery then?
Again, that's why I'm an introvert. I like to be alone. My kids leave me alone pretty much. And so they'll have their activities, but they're very much like me. We come home, we have a routine. We come home, shower, dinner, book or a bit of family time for an hour, and then everybody just relaxes into their own thing. My 6-year-old, she likes to read and draw and write. You know, it's bizarre because when we were kids and we were punished, we used to have to write the same sentence out over and over
again. I remember those, yeah.
Yeah, she likes to do that for fun. She'll be like, give me a sentence, and she just wants to write it over and over again to practice her handwriting. And then my son, he's all in his tech and Discord and these online boxing matches that he does with his friends. And so he likes to have his own space in his own room. And I just like to just chill, silence, podcasts, Audible, books. That's just me. And then every quarter, I tried to get away and have like a spa weekend and a child-free break. So there's no mum. And so I just had that peace because, again, like a weekend is a myth. Like when people say, oh, can't wait for the weekend. It's not relaxing. Got housework to do, got school uniform to wash, kids' activities, food to cook, you know. And so every quarter now I try to schedule in some self-care, whether it's mainly spa days. I like to do stuff which is just relaxing. I'm not trying to go on a hike or, you know, do anything too adventurous. I just want to do things that just kind of are chill. And then also as well, I don't accept too many invitations. It's very rare you'll see me out twice in 1 week. And so if I'm out twice in 1 week, it must be a really special occasion. But typically, I would never go out to a networking event or an event more than once a week. And I also need time. Like, can't phone me on Thursday and say, oh, we've got a seat at our table tomorrow. That's just not going to work for me. And so, yeah, I think it's just having that balance and the boundaries and knowing what I can manage, because then I'll burn out and I've still got kids to take care of. I can't really do that to the best of my ability when I'm sick. And I just like a slower pace. Now, where I'm at now, I like to move at a slower pace and be more productive. So I like to get stuff done quickly. I like to make decisions fast, but I like to move. My life is slow. I don't want to know that I'm rushing from one meeting to the next. I've got a packed up diary. I can't do all of that.
how much was your experience from last time when you ran True Life magazine has factored or filtered into you then launching the Black Business magazine and obviously being editor-in-chief? There's a lot of stuff that goes involved in that. How much has that helped? And in fact, why did you and True decide to create the Black Business magazine as well?
So I'd say why we decided to create it was, so the magazine itself was something I always wanted to do. I think back then I was inexperienced, but again, it was a confidence thing. I can do this. I don't need a journalism degree or whatever. I got this. I went to local university. I spoke at the Afro-Caribbean Society. I said, look, I'm launching this magazine. You guys are studying media. You need a work experience. At that time, it was Catch-22 in media. If you want a job, you need to have work experience. Nobody's want to give you work experience. You can't get a job. Hey, I've got the solution. Come and work with me. You get the work experience because I haven't got budget to pay you. And then you can go on and work for other, magazines and so forth. And so at one point, I think I had 40 young people who were like age 18 to 21 working with me. And it was great. We had offices or whatever else, but where we struggled was on the sales side of stuff. And back then it was a typical sales strategy when it comes to advertising. That's how magazines ran. It was based on sales. And I think we probably saw one advert in the first issue. And it was like, okay, let's try and do another. And then we were hit with the recession. But I would say it was always a dream for me to say, I want to go back there. And I think seeing that then as a success, but also a failure because of all the lessons that I learned, I was like, you know what? Now I know what can work, what won't work. And even today now where we've gone very digital, I always knew that we will have like a different business model than other publications. We wouldn't be relying on advertising. We would look at multiple streams of income and use the magazine as a shop window. And it was, again, going back to the time when I had an MBE, it was like, I'm always on stages. I'm always the one that's getting invited to these events. I'll be going to all these things in London. I'm the only one from outside of London. Sometimes I'm the only woman. Sometimes I'm the only Black woman. And it was like, there's so much amazing talent. When do we get the chance to platform and celebrate those people just because they don't have, letters before their name or letters after their name? Does it mean that they're not worthy of recognition? And in between that time, I also launched the West Midlands Women of the Year Awards for that very same reason, and which ended, I think last one was in 2016. But the purpose of launching the magazine was very much to say, listen, we need to be telling our stories. We need to be creating these narratives because guess what? Business Insider, Forbes, and all these other publications are not necessarily picking up these entrepreneurs unless it's Black History Month or it's spotlighting 10 Black businesses. Why not just spotlight them because they're great, that they've had a great story, a great marketing strategy, or they got a great investment story or whatever it may be. And so that's why we decided to start the magazine up. First, we were going to do a podcast. And then the opportunity came that Lloyds Bank approached both True and I. We both had a relationship with them in different capacities, and they wanted to do this campaign to spotlight Black-owned businesses in the Midlands, specifically because the regional development director was, representing, her role was for the Midlands. And, Lloyds very much said, look, we can't be the ones to decide or choose who are, the top 10 or top 7, Black-owned businesses that deserve to get recognition. So it makes sense for us to partner. And at that time, Lloyds were already doing a lot of work with the Black Entrepreneurs Programme and so forth. And so I just was like, cha-ching, this is a perfect opportunity to launch the magazine. Literally, I hadn't thought about it. Probably 48 hours before, I was like, this is a now or never. This opportunity may not come around again. And so we crunched the numbers. I sat down with Trin. He was like, I don't know nothing about running the magazine. I said, you don't need to. He says, but what you're really good at, which is at my forte, where I fell down last time, is sales and partnerships. And you're an extrovert, which also says, yeah, True's a social butterfly. You can do that role. And so I'm happy to step in editor-in-chief. I will attend things as editor-in-chief as and when I need to. But I'm more than happy for you to step up as CEO and be the face or the CEO of the business, because you've got a strong personal brand. You like people. I mean, I like people, but you like talking to people. You like being out there, you like networking, and also you're very good with brand partnerships. I work very closely with Tru on the MBCC Awards. And, you know, when he was at the MBCC Awards, part of his role was, as CEO, was to lead on all the sponsorship, and he pulled down, I'd say 98% of the sponsorship for the awards, which was in the six figures. And so, you know, I thought, great, because that's something that I don't really want to focus on doing. I want to make sure people's stories are told. And someone who's had experience of being in pretty much every publication, every newspaper, done live TV, done live radio, been in the glossy magazines, been in the Metro 60-second interview, which is usually reserved for like public figures and celebrities, done live stuff with politicians on television. I've done all sorts of media. Like, I know how the media works. I've been on the other side. And so I think that I am in the position where that, with my experience as also being a writer, that has, you know, developed those skill set now, I think editorial wise, I'm very much connected. So one thing that I would do is I would always find businesses and just create folders for them on Instagram. And I'm like, you know what, there's going to come a time when their stories are going to need to be told. And I just, food and drink, women, property. And I just started collecting all these folders of businesses that were in my network, because I used to just see people and I'm like, wow, amazing. They get a follow, but I like to be really organized. And I said, true, I've got over like 200 people here already that we could actually already profile and spotlight. Like, we're not short of content until next year if we didn't even find anybody new. And so I was like, you know what, let's do it. And so Lloyd's asked us for a meeting about this campaign. And I said, hey, we've got an idea. Why not launch a Black business magazine? Do you know that there isn't, and there has never been, a Black business magazine in the UK? And they were like, wow, really? And I was like, yeah, it's gap in the market. And then I was concerned around, of course, the advertising and the print. I suddenly said, short print run, because nothing can replace feeling print and flicking through those places, but we'll make it a luxury premium product, because that's where we want to position ourselves in the market. We want to be luxury premium, but also as well, let's focus also as well on digital and our digital offering and utilising social media. And then year 2, which is coming up like now, April, we really want to focus on doing events and getting more into in-person events and creating that space for Black businesses and their voices. And Lloyds were like, okay, sounds great. What's it going to cost us? We pushed the proposal over. And she was like, okay, I've got to go now. I've got another meeting, but I'll be free again in an hour. If you guys can sit here and come up with a proposal in the next hour, criteria for the campaign. I want to see how you're going to select these people, what it's going to look like, etc., etc. I'll pop back down in an hour and you can stay here. It's at the Lloyd's headquarters in Birmingham. We'll take it from there. But little did Tru know or Lloyd's know, I'd already kind of done a proposal already in advance of the meeting. I always like to come prepared. And so I said, Tru, look at this. And he's like, okay, this is great. Let's change a few things up, tweak a few things. And again, as Rebecca Tate from Lloyd's will say, she said, well, one thing I can say, they deliver. When I came down, the proposal was ready. The figures made sense. And it was like a yes. But what we'd done prior to having that meeting, so that meeting was, say, scheduled 4 weeks out. I said, Tru, first thing we need to do is get the company registered, because, you know, if we're going to move forward, it's going to be a yes. Confidence again. We need to have a legal entity. We can't wait until they say yes. Get the company registered. And that's what we did. So we registered it in March, had the meeting in April, and we'd scheduled the photo shoot for the 12th of May. We decided on 10 people for the cover. 3 eventually didn't want to do it, got shy. And then we had 7. And literally we did the photo shoot on the 12th of May. At that point, there was no magazine, there was no logo, there was not one word written on a piece of paper, not one interview question prepared, just a vision and a dream. And 4 weeks later, we delivered the magazine to Lloyd's at their Black Entrepreneurs event as a physical magazine in person. It was the brown cover. And my vibe was kind of like Vogue meets Essence magazine. I didn't want our magazine to be very much like a typical business magazine, which is like 5 articles to a page, loads of writing, I want people to look at it as if like, this is a coffee table read, Saturday afternoon, Sunday, got my cup of coffee, flicking through the pages and taking my time to soak in the stories. And so that's why with the design, we decided to go for more use of white space, less adverts. And so we wanted to create something that people could read, like their stories kind of jumped out on the page. And she was like, yeah, I'm just going with whatever. So you can lead the way. I trust you. And that's important about working as a partnership. There's got to be an element of trust in people's abilities and expertise. And I could see the vision. And as a woman who has read magazines all her life, previously launched a magazine, and also as well looked at the gap. And I've always said, why? Because to be quite honest, I was actually going to launch a magazine for women. But then I came across another magazine, a business magazine for women. I was like, okay, let that breathe. And then that's when the opportunity came. And I was like, you know what, Black business, it is. And, somebody questioned us and said, oh, why don't you just do like, businesses of colour, like all ethnic minorities or now global majority? And I said, no, like, I want to do Black business. I think that we have specific needs. We've got specific challenges. And why can't we have something for us? Why does our stuff have to be diluted? And also as well, we want to challenge people to say the word Black, because some people, it's very uncomfortable. They can say BAME and ethnic minorities, but the word Black makes people very uncomfortable. But unfortunately, until you start looking at us as who we are and our unique challenges and all the intersectionality that goes within it, we're not going to get the opportunities and the support that we need. And True and I were very much connected in terms of the business ecosystem. Again, we were involved in the Birmingham Black Business Show. True at the time was the chair and the vice chair. This year I am now the chair, he's the vice chair. We're involved in quite a few networks across the UK. And so it was like, we want to be able to have this platform to also be able to disseminate our information about opportunities and accelerator programs and things that's happening that people are not aware of. And it's not a case that there's not enough support out there. The case is that we're not aware of it. And I always say it's not the lack of opportunity, but there is no equality of opportunity. And so therefore, if we're not exposed to the information, it's always 2 days too late. Then therefore, how can we put ourselves forward for certain opportunities if we never even knew that they existed in the first place? And that's the kind of goal with the magazine. I'd say we haven't even kind of got started into our business plan of where we want to go. But the first thing was the first 12 months is more about awareness and kind of start building the audience and building the business case as why we needed to exist. But again, the magazine is just a shop window for what is yet to come over the next 12 to 18 months.
I love hearing stories around the inception, the creation, but also the process behind some such things like the magazine. If I wish I had it with me, there somewhere, because it's something I think is really important for people to understand that these are not just, I'm just going to create a magazine, that's it. There's so much work and effort. I mean, we even mentioned it earlier on, like last year, you were there trying to pull it all together, and it was not easy. And a lot of times I think we can see the glitz and the glam of when things are put out there, but you don't always appreciate how much time it's taking people to actually produce it. And once you learn and you hear stories like you just shared right now, that heightens that I really want this. I really want to appreciate it. I want to take the time to read it. But also, there's also a curiosity around what's coming next. This is the foundation period.
Yeah.
And that awareness piece is really, really important. But then next is around that platforming. It's around like I said, giving that access to information, but also around championing Black business to be able to thrive in a system that's not set up for you to succeed. That's the facts. But having things like the Black Business Magazine to help with that infrastructure, to put our stuff into place, it's brilliant. And I'm curious that when I listen to you talk about that, your challenges, your struggles, going from prison to the palace, going from having a magazine that failed to starting this one, to so many different endeavors that you're involved in, from a not-for-profit as well as from a awards perspective, all about championing other people. What's been the most pivotal or most important endeavor that you've been involved with?
I would say at the beginning of my journey was the youth project that I got involved with, which was based in Birmingham. It was called Young Disciples. So starting there, say day one, volunteer 30 hours a week, £45 and job seekers allowance, left there 18 months later on a salary of like 18,500, fundraised for the organisation, pulled down £150,000 in funding for them, and then decided, difference of opinion with leadership, that I was going to leave. And part of that money was actually a salary for myself. And I said, nah, keep your money. I'm bouncing and I'm just going to take my paperwork and my resources. Literally, you see on the TV, I get that box, packing your stuff up on the desk. And that's literally what I did. But that pivotal moment was that if I hadn't taken that opportunity, I don't think I'd be here where I am today. If I hadn't seen that white van pull up and say, oh, that youth project, then gone there and thought, oh my gosh, they're doing some amazing work. Can I volunteer? And they were like, yeah, sure. And then I ended up getting clearance and then being able to work there full time and then learn so much and then say, you know what, okay, let me just learn for 18 months. And then, leaving there and then being able to go on my own 2 feet and build from then. I think that was the pivotal, as in, Malcolm Gladwell's brought the tipping point for me. And it was that period, and it's that 18-month period to say, right, you've got this 18-month window now, just get to work, head down, get to work. It wasn't about money, it wasn't about accolades, it was just about doing the work. And I think that's kind of led me to where I am today. And that period of time was rough. Like, if you look back now, I think, oh my gosh, life was rough. But you didn't feel like it at the time. And so it's like, if I can survive that, and I could survive letting stuff go, making stuff redundant, giving up my office. We had a beautiful office right in the city centre by the mailbox. We had no money left. The business partner at the time, he'd left, moved his stuff back to his house. And I was turned up one day and it says, oh, Fob's not working, you can't get into the office. And we had no laptops, no computers. And then we were like, we used to have checkbooks back then. And they were like, when you've paid your rent, you can get back in your rent's like 2 weeks overdue. So I was like, okay, well, my checkbook's in my office. So if you give me access, and I can get my checkbook and then get my stuff. And it's like, okay, we're going to activate your cards for 24 hours. But by that point, we was packing up and kind of shutting down the organisation. So pretty much from 40 people, any one time it could be 15, 20 people in the office. And everybody's gone around now, oh, okay, we've got what we needed. We gone on to do our own stuff. It was me and there was one other young lady who stuck around. And I remember at that time hiring a car. It was a 2-door Vauxhall Corsa. I don't know where. I think we had to go somewhere where we needed this car. And when we got that past the 24 hours, I just says to her, we need to empty this office within the next 24 hours. Otherwise, we're going to lose everything. We're going to lose all our books, all our resources, our computers, all our files. So obviously, everything used to be in paper cabinets and stuff. Very much paper, wasn't it, based? And so we waited till 5 o'clock when the receptionist went home. It's like a serviced office building. And we waited till the staff had went home. And we had to walk up a long corridor and go up in a little lift and then walk up another long corridor to get to our office. And I think it took us about 12 trips from like 6 o'clock till 3 in the morning. And it was just me and her. And obviously it's worse because you have to pull the car seats forward. And we just stuffed the office. And my apartment was literally like 5 minutes away. And we literally had to just empty the office, left the key on the reception, and then just left. And it was a moment where I just felt like, wow, this is like the biggest failure of my life. Like, what are people going to think? Because at that time now, I started to build a personal brand, been in all the papers. And this was just the year before I'd got my MBE. But I was very well known in Birmingham and in the business community, youth community. And I was like, this is just embarrassing. And I was just in my house, and my designer, who was the creative director, like he called me and he's like, oh, so what's next? When are we going to do next edition? What's going on? He was a male. And I was like, we're closed. Like, don't you get it? Like, we shut down. Like, the office is gone. Like, we've got nothing. We've got an iMac, a Mac computer, and that's it. Like, and a couple of PCs. He was like, yeah, and you just work from home. Like, it's not a big thing. And he says, think about all the people that you look up to as entrepreneurs in America or wherever else. Most of them have failed in life at something, and they just rebuilt it again. They got a bigger profile than you, Justice. They had more money than you. They were much more successful than you. So if they can do it, what do you think so special about you that you couldn't do it? Like, you're not that important that people are, that you're going to be on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow. Justice Williams fails at True Life magazine. You know, like, you're not that special. Like, you just rebuild and do it again. And so I took a few weeks to kind of lick my wounds, and I thought, you know what, he's right, but now is not the season, because bigger publications were closing their doors because of the recession, and the publishing industry was one of the worst hit. And so I just was like, I'll do something else. And then I just focused on my enterprise support programs and support young people to start a business. But I think that was very much a key. Those two moments are very much key, pivotal moments to where I am today.
Well, actually, there's so many places I can go with you on this interview, because there's so much stuff in the color. I'm like, man, I could ask it that, I could ask it that. I will be a flat. No, is. But I'm going to respect your time. And
it's like my life is like very much a roller coaster, and it's like, I think that's where I struggle with like men do interviews or podcasts, because it's like, unless you say, right, let's focus on personal branding, or let's focus on this, it's going to be like me just, I remember this, and somebody else is going to.
And I think that's what life's about.
Yeah.
It's the fact that life is not linear. And there's so many different elements to who we are. And that's what I actually love. That's why I love this. That's why I created the podcast. I want to hear the tapestry. I don't want to hear the business. No. Give it the full tapestry, the weaves in and out, the stuff that people don't see.
Yeah.
And that's what you've been able to do today. And honestly, I was listening to that. Yeah, okay. I can ask her that. I was like, yeah, listen, let me hold back. Let me just listen. But it's been very, very powerful, very, very inspiring, because there's a lot about you that I did not know at all. So you just coming in and sharing that, I really appreciate it. And I guess the last question I'm going to end with is, how do you define leadership?
Oh, that's really, 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 really good question. And to quote somebody actually who I interviewed the other day, because one of the things I said about leadership is that it's very interesting that leadership is a function and not a role. And so for me, leadership is all about the ability to lead. It's not about us, it's about them. And when I say that, often than not, people see themselves as, I am a leader and I am this great person. But actually, it's about having a vision. Not everybody may see that vision, or they may not 100% be sold on that vision. But you, having gained their trust in you, that they believe that you are in the position to lead them to wherever it is that they need to go. And for me, you know, we all have leadership qualities, and they show up in different spaces and at different times, whether that be at home, in the workplace, in our community, in our church, in our businesses. But for me, leadership is a skill that we all have, but ultimately we all need. And if you're not, first of all, the leader and the CEO of your own life, and you're not writing your story, you're going to allow someone to write it for you.
What a way to end the conversation. Well, right end just is like, yeah, I'm going to take it to church, you know? And she just, that's what I see when right end down. Now, Anya, this has been really, really powerful. This has been such a learning so much about you and your journey, but more importantly around the ability to pick yourself up, to dream big, to be confident, to back yourself, which is something that you've done repeatedly. And while doing those different elements, making such an impact in the lives of so many people, which is what I think is important. As much as you platform other people, it's also right that people platform you and people shine a spotlight on you, even though you don't like it. But we're going to do that anyway and give you your flowers.
And then the last thing is actually my other favourite saying, which also leads to leadership. And think about great leaders that have gone before us, is your life is your legacy. So what will yours look like? And that's for me, like when we leave this earth and it's ashes to ashes and dust to dust, what will be remembered for? And that's to me what I always keep close to my heart when I'm doing the things that I'm doing. It's about the impact. If my life is my legacy, what will it look like when I'm no longer here?
This is Justice Williams. There's a lot to learn from her. And she puts out amazing content on LinkedIn, on IG. There's the UK Black Business Magazine that you can subscribe to and support, because there's so much you got to learn in that as well. But just connecting with Justice, you were better for it. You just had a little snippet of her story, but that gives you an idea of who she is as a person. And she's an amazing person as well. So connect with Justice. All the information about how you can do that will be available in the show notes. This is Everyday Leadership. We'll see you all next week.